All right, we're back. I know it's been a minute since you probably have heard from us, but we are back. We're excited for the new year. And we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl today because Grace is in SF, but she doesn't really know much about it. So we'll start off with Grace. What do you know about the Super Bowl? And then what questions do you have? Because I think there's a lot of, I'm going to call it noise around the Super Bowl when it comes to the creator world.
There is so much noise, and we're gonna dive into that noise today in this episode. What I know about Super Bowl is it's so I grew up born and raised in America, but like my immigrant parents never cared about Super Bowl. There's like, oh yeah, it's a white people thing, whatever, you know? And
Fair,
they're just
fair.
like really owning their Asianness. So like as a kid, I never knew what it was. I'm just like, okay, they throw a ball, people cheer. Cool. That's what I know about Super Bowl. But as I get into it more, I was doing some research before this. I feel like what's interesting about Super Bowl compared to regular football is like creators and sports marketing and just like lifestyle people get involved because the ads, people spend like millions and millions of dollars on these ads and the halftime show. So it's like a concert on its own too. So it's like beyond football people like getting together. It's also just a time to excuse to party and get on with friends. And I just know a typical American Super Bowl tradition is like go to like a sports bar, watch the Super Bowl, drink a lot of beer, eat a lot of pizza, get really unhealthy food, and celebrate with their homies, with their bros, and just like cheer. And yeah, so that's the typical thing people like. I guess what I understand from the American tradition as someone born and raised in America with parents who never really liked Super Bowl, but I feel like last year I noticed that like I remember last year we mentioned that Poppy did an activation. There's like some beef with like Poppy and Olipop or something like that. They like gave away a lot of like a vending machine to creators and they it's like a place for creators to activate and make a lot of content and it's like beyond sports because like there's a lifestyle component as well. So I'm here in SF just because I also live halftime in SF and I happen to be here during the Super Bowl, not planned, but I was like, all right, it's here. I'm just gonna like enjoy the events. There's like so many creator events going on. They're like tech company doing and just like I guess I don't know. I see Super Bowl right now as there's just like as an excuse to like celebrate with your friends, even if you don't care about football. I know nothing about football. I'm just scared of the ball. But like I feel like sports, like throughout human history, has been a way to bring people together. Like people get like so offended for some reason if their team loses. And it's just and I want to dive into that as well. It's like a cult. Not a cult, but like it's just some kind of like bonding experience. Like for example, I think the LA Rams were like having some kind of final game last week, and all of my LA, not all, but like many of my LA friends were like, even they're not from America. They're like, well, I want our team to win. It's like kind of like hometown like pride and stuff, which I understand. But I guess like people like American, I mean like I guess over the world because like there's like football in the, in Argentina. Anyways, you ramble a little bit, but I feel like sports is a way for people to just like somehow like connect to their identity and like celebrate together and just excuse to like drink with your friends. So that's my understanding of Super Bowl. What is wrong? What is right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think from like a casual standpoint, right? Like you're kind of hitting a lot of the top points, I would say. Um, the interesting thing about the Super Bowl is like football as a sport internationally, right? If we're looking at it from a global standpoint, really isn't that popular, right? It's kind of just in America. The more popular football-ish type of sport is rugby, right? That's the really big sport. That's similar to football. It's not the same, but very similar. That's probably the most similar sport, I would say. But from a dollar standpoint, football beats pretty much every sport besides I would probably say soccer, like the top soccer leagues in the world. Like in the US, it is the number one like most profitable um sports like franchise in comparison to basketball, soccer, baseball, yada yada yada, which is again very interesting because it's like internationally it's not very popular of a sport, but it makes the most money. And the more interesting part too that I would like that's interesting for me is there's only like teams only play 16 games a year. So there's this aspect of like scarcity to it as well, right? Whereas basketball, you're playing 82 games in a regular season. Baseball is like over 100 games in a season. The MLS, I believe, is like 30 or 40 games a season. Football, you only have 18 or 16, sorry. So like when those games are happening, they're super expensive. And for instance, like a game to get into the Super Bowl right now, I just looked it up. How much do you think it costs to get into the Super Bowl, if you had to guess? No, 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 for you to buy a ticket, to buy a ticket. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, to get into the stadium, it's like $5,000, which for me, like, that's still absolutely insane, right? Because that's what you're there for 2 hours, right? 2.5 hours, maybe. And it's $5,000 just to get into the stadium. We're not even talking about like anything in the lower levels or anything like that, right? That's where you're getting to the 7, 10, 15, 20, $50,000 tickets, depending on like suite prices and stuff like that, which again is absolutely insane. But that is the draw of the Super Bowl. And this is where I think the creator economy kind of plays a role into it, because it's kind of becoming less about the sport and more about the spectacle, right? Because again, the person who loves football, that is this diehard football fan, likely is not going to be able to afford $5,000 to get into the stadium, right? Not let alone traveling, flight tickets, anything like that, right? Um, so who actually comes to these games, or who actually goes to these games? It's actually a big networking event, right? So from a creator standpoint, right, it's if you get access to the Super Bowl, you know that you're someone special, likely, or you know someone on the inside that can get you access into it or anything like that. But you're probably someone famous or of stature to be invited to the Super Bowl, right? So who are you going to be meeting? You're going to be meeting celebrities. You're going to be meeting other players. You're going to be meeting other executives. And a lot of companies will buy suite tickets or buy tickets and use that as like a sales tactic, right? Of like, oh, we're going to invite our top 10 or 20 sales prospects to this suite or to this Super Bowl event, and we're going to wine and dine them, and we're going to use the Super Bowl as a selling point. So would love to be on those teams. I'm not on those teams. Would love to be courted, but that's not us, right? So it's been really interesting to see the shift. And I think this has really happened over the past like 10 or 20 years, where like ticket prices have gotten super expensive. And again, it's become less about the game and more about the spectacle and like being able to take a photo and like put on your Instagram that you're there.
Makes sense. I feel like oh, I remember seeing memes, people zooming into, like, Taylor Swift's face, like, people, like, care a lot. Wait, I think Trump or I don't know, um, I remember seeing memes about people wait, you're frozen. Oh, you were
I can
frozen
hear you
for a
now.
bit, but we're
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
we're back, yeah. I remember seeing memes about people in the audience, so it makes a lot of sense. It's so interesting. Why do you think it has evolved this way to, like, losing sense of, like, the football, but like, the networking event?
I think for me, again, this is kind of the conversation of, are we in this sort of like late stage capitalism side of things, right? If you're trying to squeeze the dollar out of every single little thing, the Super Bowl is a great event for that. Ads dollars keep going up, ad prices keep going up, viewership stays the same, if not goes up a little bit every year. And then you invite more and more famous people to make the FOMO even greater. And then who are the people that can afford those tickets? A, either you're really rich, or B, you work for a corporation that is trying to wine and dine someone, more than likely. Again, if you're able to stack up and save 5 to 10 grand for a couple tickets, then great. That's amazing for you. Maybe some of the software engineers in SF can do that. But like the average American who's probably making what, like 50 to 60K a year, like no one's going to be able to drop 10 to 20% of their yearly salary on just a ticket, right? So it's really interesting to see what it's evolved into. Even like if you're looking at the World Cup, right, which that's something that I really care about. A lot of people are complaining about the one in the US because of how expensive it has kind of gotten. If you're looking at tickets comparative to the one in 2022, like a World Cup final ticket, 3 rows from the field was $1,500, which is super cheap if you're looking at what the normal prices for a World Cup ticket in the nosebleeds in the US is going to be this summer. the lowest price is like $4,500 right now just to get into the stadium, right? So if you're talking about that $1,500 ticket, that in the US is probably going to cost you 15 to 25 grand, depending on who's playing and stuff like that, which is, again, absolutely insane, right? So it's interesting. I don't like it from a sports person standpoint because, again, I don't think the true sports fans are really the ones that are being able to see this. It's more, as social media would like to call it, performative nowadays. But we'll see where it goes. Yeah, to NFL, to the stadiums. I mean, again, the players' contracts are getting bigger and bigger, everything like that. Um, Again, I think I don't know too much about it, but like it just seems like we are leading towards peak capitalism, where it's like literally everything out in the world is about figuring out how can we take the last dollar out of it. Which, again, that's kind of what this podcast is too, right? Like how creators make money, and we're talking and telling creators like, hey, check out the way that you're creating your content. Make sure that you're optimizing how you're making money and things of that nature. And again, I think in the ideal world, there's a balance to it. I think right now, just because of the state of how everything is moving, everyone is just leaning to try to make as much money as they possibly can, which I don't necessarily think is right or wrong. It's just where you decide morally you lay on that road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can creators, I feel like there's also like the ad spend has gone up. Like people see like all these celebrities and all these people like eyeballs watching, they want to get in front. And I remember last year I saw a lot of like AI generated ads. I feel like we're gonna see more AI generated ads. And I think my favorite ad, I don't know if it was the last year or the year before, was that QR code bumping up and down. And that was like the most effective one.
Which
And I feel
one?
like people are
That was Coinbase, right? I think it
yeah,
was.
yeah, the QR code. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I feel
yeah.
like people, just like the average American or average football fan, probably can't afford the $5,000 ticket. So they're probably watching at home on the TV with their friends and on their phones. So I feel like it's a huge like marketing opportunity for brands to get in front of a lot of people too. And I feel like it's like kind of like as big as actually like, I feel like the Olympics are way bigger. But just like a way for people to get together and stuff. But I'm curious, like I've seen a lot of activations around creators now, especially in the Bay Area. How does the Super Bowl relate to creators, and how can creators take advantage of the Super Bowl and participate in the late stage capitalism as well?
Yeah, I mean, right? Like, again, that's my perspective, right? If you're seeing a
Hmm.
trend happening, it's kind of up to you to figure out what the game is and be a part of it too,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I would say for this Super Bowl, it's probably a little too late, right? Because it's happening this weekend. Um, but what I would say is I think this is starting to happen to every event out there, right? If you think about it, South by even is very similar. There's the event of South by itself, which is the conference and the movies that are screened and the music artists. But there's so many brand activations around it where if you play your cards right, you can get invited to South by from one of those brands, right? But you won't necessarily even be a part of technically South by Southwest, but you'll be a part of Spotify's activation at South by, or you'll be a part of Twitter's activation at South by, or whoever is creating activation there, right? And I think you're starting to see that everywhere. And in Austin, you have the same thing with F1. When F1 comes to town, there's so many activations from all the brands that sponsor F1 that are, again, trying to get the most bang out of their buck by hosting events in downtown Austin. So how do you figure this out? I would say now that I'm on the internal side, you probably want to build out or look at a calendar like 6 to 8 months wherever you want to be, whether it's events that are happening within your niche, whether it's events that are happening in a city that you live in or a city that you live near. Like, figure out what are those cyclical events that are happening every single year in your industry, in your city, and map it out. And then from there, start to work backwards. So, like, for instance, the World Cup, if I was really trying to play 4D chess, which at one point I was, but I just didn't follow through with it, I would I was at one point paying attention to who were the sponsors in 2022 World Cup and who announced that they're going to be a sponsor for 2026 World Cup. Because I know if they're going to sponsor the 2026 World Cup, they're going to spend a lot of money. So if that's the case, then I would just try to network within that space as much as possible and like try to figure out who ends up having budget for this thing. Again, I never followed through just because Declassified kind of like I like my time with Declassified has kind of gone to the back burner as I focus a little bit more on Handshake. Um, but that's how I would go about it.
Like find out which brands are going and just getting in their DMs early. So same goes with like South by Southwest and like 6 to 8 months. We should do that for Olympics. Yeah, because I feel like it's in LA in
Yeah, Olympics in LA,
2028.
what? Not next year, the year after, right?
Yeah, so in two
28, I
years.
think.
It's in 2 years.
Um,
Yeah, 2 years ahead of time. People are buying
so
tickets
yeah,
now.
yeah. Like that, like again, that's how I look at it, right? Is you figure out who are the sponsors, and then you have to try
Hmm.
to figure out who controls budget at those
Hmm.
sponsors.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's
Yeah,
an
because
agency, and sometimes it's the direct brand themselves, just depending on how big they are.
and sometimes like they'll usually brands will invite a couple of creators to come and pay for their ticket. And they probably it's usually in my experience doing this, it's usually unpaid, but they expect you to make content, but they give you a free ticket. Sometimes they comp your whole trip as well. I know some creators who got paid $10,000 to go to Adobe Max, and I got paid $0. So I need
Well,
to
like
figure that out too.
I know someone who got offered, I think it was 50 to 100K to show up to the NBA All-Star game, which is going to happen in like a couple weeks, for like 3 or 4 hours, right?
Oh
Obviously,
wow.
this is a very big creator. Like, it's not someone small by any means. Like, he's probably one of the biggest people in his space. So he definitely has the clout for that. But like, that's the prices that these people are charging at that level for these types of events. I can't imagine how much like a Drewski or whoever gets paid to go to the Super Bowl or like be a part of it. I would imagine it's 6 figures, close to 7 figures just to even like show up.
Yeah, I need to learn how to get on that level because currently where I'm at, I get a lot. I can get any. I never had to pay for any ticket, and I feel like I can get into any room I want now. But no one has paid me to show up. The only time I'm paid is I'm speaking. I'm currently working at the event, so I need to learn like how to get on that level. I need to ask
Well,
some friends how they
I
do
think
it.
there's two angles. I think the one angle is consumer, right? So like for instance, this person that I'm talking about, he he has the eye of the consumer of who the NBA All-Star game wants to get in front of, right? So it makes sense, right? Because NBA wants probably young boys to watch the NBA All-Star game, so they're collaborating with this creator for that. So that's one angle. For instance, again, if you have a football dominant audience or whatever, you probably can find a way to get an invite to the Super Bowl. Now, the other route, which I think not that many people think about, which might be interesting for you because you play in this world as well, is figuring out how can you build a brand that companies where you sit in the intersection of B2B sales. And the reason that I say that, like for instance, right, if let's say, for instance, Figma and OpenAI want to do a deal. This is purely hypothetical here. So take everything I'm going to say with a grain of salt, right? But let's just say Figma and OpenAI want to do a deal, right? And you are, Grace, becoming the number one voice in the design space, in the B2B design space. Like if OpenAI is talking about AI for designers, you're getting invited there. If Adobe is talking about AI for designers, you're getting invited for there. Figma, whoever, right? Like you, Grace, always get invited to that. I bet you there's an argument to be made where if OpenAI wants to do a deal with Figma, let's just say hypothetically, and they're like, oh, we want to go to the Super Bowl or rent out a suite. Oh, who should we bring that would be a good mediator between OpenAI and Figma? Oh, Grace is. She's spoken at both companies. She's kind of a thought leader in the space. I think that is a super not saturated space, so to say. I think it's very hard to compete on the consumer lens. It's a lot easier to be Colin and Samir, for instance, right? Like they're probably getting invites to the Super Bowl, World Cup, etc., or like events adjacent to it because they play more on the B2B side and their voices are respected by the people that are ultimately going to be closing these multi-million dollar deals.
Mm. How do you recommend creators get in the B2B side?
I think you do stuff like this podcast, right? Like you just build your brand instead of for consumers, you build it for B2B. I think AJ is probably a good example of this, right? He gets invited to everything. That man has incredible motion. Like shout out to AJ. Um, like look at people like AJ, figure out how they network. Brett is also a really good one in the space too, right? Like there is a certain game that you have to play. I personally don't love playing that game, but I understand how to play it. And like when I'm in those rooms, I can if I really want to. But there is a sort of level of game that you need to play to get to that level and get in those rooms and be a part of those conversations.
I feel like Chloe She's also a good example too. I see like she interviews like CEOs and stuff too. So I'm gonna try to
Hmm.
learn from them. I'm trying to get into that space. That's why. But kind of going back into sports and Super Bowl, like what do you think is the future of sports marketing? Because I feel like so many ad spends are getting into creators activating. I feel like sports are becoming really, really popular, especially like football. But why not like track and field? Is it because these NFL. I'm just curious, like why football? Why not like I don't know, like swimming or like track and field?
I think like it all comes down to marketing, right? And I think if you're looking at more action oriented sports, and I would say like football, soccer, basketball, these are sports where it's not very similar every single time someone steps on the field, so to say, right? Versus tennis, like it's someone hitting the ball back and forth. And I'm not saying that there's not skill to it. There 100% is, right? But it's a very singular action sport, right? Very similar to track and field. Someone running, someone throwing a javelin, someone high jumping, right? Again, very skillful, very athletic sport, but you know what you're going to get when you go and watch a track and field meet, right? And it takes nothing from the sport. It's just about how marketable something is, right? And I think that's where football, again, you don't know how someone is going to get hit. Every single play could literally be different. They can play it, they can throw it along to Puka, or they can run it to Derrick Henry. And maybe Derrick Henry only gets 2 yards on the play, but the next time he goes and runs, he might get 85, right? There's difference in every single play that is made there. Same with soccer, same with basketball. And I think that's why those sports have popped off first because again, our world lives around attention and marketing and everything like that. You're starting to see the rise of like women's sports, which I think is good. I think it's interesting to see how it's going to all play out because for me, marketing dollars and the reason that all of these NBA contracts, NFL, even soccer contracts, things of that nature, the reason that they're so big is because of how many eyes that they draw, so to say. And until other sports, whether male or female sports, are able to draw the same eyeballs, I think it's very hard to justify similar contracts, right? It's same if you're looking at software engineers and like a designer, right? Like again, no one is arguing that Grace as a designer at EA isn't very skillful, but in terms of how you impact the business, you could argue that software engineers likely make more impact. That's why they're paid more, right? Because without the software engineer, there's no Sims for you to design, right? So it's very interesting to see how it'll all play out. But I think when it comes to sports, it all comes down to eyeballs. The more eyeballs you get, the more marketing dollars come, the higher contracts get. I think it's very simple.
Mm. I feel like running. I know running is such a repetitive thing, and I know runners don't professional runners need like separate jobs to make a living. It's like that there's like no money in running. People just do it for the passion. It makes sense because I feel like in football and soccer, like you can never know how they get hit and stuff. But I feel like running, especially and pickleball has become really popular amongst consumers because it's really accessible. Like anyone have legs, um, anyone can like throw like do a racket and stuff. So I feel like a lot of companies. Okay, so I was talking to my friend yesterday. Um, his name is Alec. He runs this community called Learners. He's basically like the UX research equivalent of Design Buddies, and but he does like mostly focus on in real life events. No, not much of an online community, but in real life events. And it's like very corporate, very B2B. He's like he's making like, I don't know how to disclose. I don't think I should disclose, but like a lot of money from sponsorship, like so much money. But he also has 6 full-time employees. So he's doing really, really well. He's taught me so much about negotiation, but he's mostly doing B2B. Like the reason why he makes so much money is his audience who come to his events are all research leaders, decision makers at companies. But Brooks, also the running shoe brand, also sponsored his research running. And I've seen more and more run clubs being really popular because I feel like running is just really accessible, and like run clubs had become so popular, and also pickleball too, just because anyone can do it. So I feel like but like I feel like when I go to a run club and pickleball, everyone, like 99% of people there are just there for the fun. They don't really care about like watching the Olympics or like care about who is running fast. They just go there to socialize. Same as pickleball. Like no one ever talks about like the pickleball championships or talks about competing. So I feel like there's like a divide in like the professional sports and like the casual sports. And a lot of the marketing dollars maybe I also like I was talking to a bunch of brands at CES who do like sports tech brands. They want to work with athlete creators because a lot more attention is in the consumer now. So it's interesting to see how like run clubs and pickleball, and I don't think I feel like run clubs usually run off not donations, but like sponsor, like gifted sponsorships. So I'm trying to figure out like how to crack that and how to like, because I also am hosting a run club too. So I don't know. It was just interesting
Well,
to
I
see
think
more people.
sports creators have had a big rise over the past like 3 to 5 years, I would say. Run clubs have popped off, but a really niche one is golf. Golf has just absolutely gone crazy. And the reason, like one of the reasons it's gone crazy, it's like very similar to pickleball, where it's easy to pick up, not necessarily easy to get good, right? But like it's pretty easy to learn how to swing a club. I'm not saying you're gonna become amazing or become Tiger Woods, but to play it, socialize during it, like golfing is more of a go and hang out with people, drink a little bit while you're playing and have a good time than like trying to be competitive, to your point. Very similar to run clubs, I would say, right? A lot of it is like getting together, running, maybe grab some coffee after, maybe you end up at a brewery, just depending on the vibe of the run club. But it's more about getting together rather than the actual activity, right? The unique thing though about golf is it's very high margin. And so brand deals in the golf space were really lucrative because you could, if you're thinking about Run Club is interesting because they want you to run more because you burn through your shoes quicker, so you buy more shoes, right? Very similar to like the Michelin Star Guide thing, right? Like the reason that tires created the Michelin Star Guide is so that you have to drive more and in return you use your tires more. So I don't know if you knew the lore behind that, but that's the reason that Michelin star restaurants are a thing. Yes, exactly, right? So very similar to that, like it makes sense for me why running brands sponsor run clubs, because it's like, well, if Grace is always running 5 miles or 10 miles every single time that she hosts this run club, if she hosts it 3 times a week, that's 15 to 30 miles that 25 other people are running on their shoes, and we know that our shoes are, I don't know, they've got 300 miles on every shoe before it starts to break down a little bit, that we know that we'll make our money back, right, over time, because people will just be running through their shoes. So that's how I look at it. And the golf space is different, a little bit different, because like your golf clubs, I don't think break as easily as like running shoes, but they cost a lot. And so do tee times. That's what it's called. Like when you play around the golf or whatever. Like all those things are very expensive, and it leans towards a more affluent crowd, which allows sponsors to pay creators more because their margin on the back end is a little bit higher. So it's very interesting. Again, we talked about it with Tonester, of like, it kind of makes more sense to position yourself a little bit more luxury because it just gives you more upside in the long run, in my opinion.
Mm, makes sense. Makes sense. What kind of sports communities do you like to participate in? I know you were, and like, I'm just curious, like, for sports marketing, there's also like, I'm just thinking of all the ways that how these companies make money, because there's also sports betting, there's creators, there's the NFL, there's the companies. It's like a whole economy in sports. Oh, you're frozen. Hello?
Oh, yep. Okay. Back. Um, so I pay a lot of attention to soccer, a little bit with football now, just because of I'm in like a family like fantasy league, so it was like fun to again casually pay attention to it, and then a little bit of basketball as well. Like those are the three main sports that I pay attention to. It's really interesting to see what sports betting has done to the space over the past like 3 or 4 years or so. I participate in sports betting, but I do it more to make games a little bit more interesting. Am I addicted to it? One could argue, but like I am smartly addicted to it, if that makes sense. Like the way that I look at it is I find places that have big sign up bonuses. I spend $5. So, like for instance, DraftKings is like bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. So I'll put $5 down and then get $300. Turn that $300 into like 100 or $200, and then I'll just play with house money, essentially. So I know because I keep track of everything in a spreadsheet that like I'm up X amount of dollars. It's not a lot of money, but I know that I can lose a lot if I really wanted to and it not really affect me, right? Because I know that I have a huge buffer before I actually start losing money. Other people I know have gone into debt from sports betting, right? We're talking anywhere between a couple $100 to a few $1,000s, right? Because they're throwing, I don't know, instead of like I spend like $5, $10 bets at most, maybe a $50 bet, right? Just to have a little skin in the game. I know people that are throwing a couple $100, a couple $1,000, like into these things, which again, a lot of it is kind of chance a lot of the times, right? So it's interesting to see how this world has played out. If you're looking at other spaces in the world, like for instance, Europe, a lot of sports betting apps like aren't allowed to advertise the same way that like DraftKings and Prize Picks and stuff are allowed to advertise in the US. Like, man, if you can get a sports betting sponsorship right now, they are paying crazy money because they just have money to spend. But again, I don't know how long that gravy train lasts. Who knows? Again, maybe it's late stage capitalism where it just stays on forever. But
It's like
Vegas is
gambling.
dying. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard. It's sad. But yeah, who makes the money at the end of the day for sports betting? Do they take the platform chase, like take like transaction fee, or how
It's
do
the
these
it's
sports
the
betting
book. So
companies?
it's like the books.
The books? What are the books? Wait, what do you mean by the books?
Yeah, so like for instance, right? Let's say you're a runner, right? You're in the Olympics, right? And let's just say you're running the mile and your line for the mile is over 4 minutes and 10 seconds or under 4 minutes and 10 seconds, right?
Mhm.
I put $100 on Grace to go under 4 minutes and 10 seconds. And if I get it, if you go under 4 minutes and 10 seconds, I make $250. Again, random numbers here, right? I put that $100 on DraftKings. You go run your race. You run your mile 4 minutes, 10 seconds, or 4 minutes and 11.5 seconds. I miss, I lose, right? Because I bet the under, right? So that means my $100, DraftKings gets all of it. They're the book. They get all of it. You, as a
Oh.
runner, you never see any of it.
I feel like in runners, they would like get a lot of pressure if they see how much money people is betting on the line to win.
Well, like you see some weird scenarios happen. So like for instance, Kalshi is like the big they're not sports betting. It's like this weird workaround where it's like futures. So technically it's like an investment that they're arguing. So they're allowed to do it. but like you've seen some weird things where I forget what her name is, but the speaker for Trump, like the media speaker, forget what her name is, but like she had a line on Kalshi where it was like over or under her talk is going to be, I don't know, like 4 minutes and 23 seconds. And she was rambling, going, and then at like 4 minutes and 22 seconds, she just stopped. And it's like, oh, this is a little sus. And also, I think like Trump's son is on Kalshi's board, which is like a little weird, right? When you start connecting some of these dots. But like you also see some weird things happen in the sports world too, where like people go under, and you're seeing some investigations right now in the sports betting world, especially like the NBA. So there's a lot to unpack there. It doesn't really matter the creator economy other than like there are a lot of sports betting app brand deals that you can get, and they're very lucrative right now. And that's up to you if you want to get that bag or not. I'm not going to judge you if you get it or not, but like there are a lot of people making a lot of money from those things right now.
Mm. Is there any betting around the Super Bowl? There probably is. How do people get involved? Well, I'm not trying to encourage that, but I'm just curious. Like, how does sports betting work in relation to Super Bowl, and how do
Yeah, I
people
mean,
make
if you
money from
use
that?
my promo code at Price Picks with, I'm just kidding. Like I mean, you can there's a bunch of different apps, right, that you can go and figure out. Like if you just look up Super Bowl sports betting, I'm sure you'll get hit with numerous affiliate links from there. It shouldn't be that hard. I would just say again, as a creator, I would just be mindful of trends. Where's the trend happening? Where is the money in those trends? And how can you best position yourself to siphon off some of that money for you, right? Like, for instance, right now, I would say the big trends on my radar, at least, are AI. Like AI companies are raising a lot of money, so that means they have a lot of money to spend. I'm sure we're going to see open AI ads. We're going to be seeing all these different crazy ads, right? All around AI during the Super Bowl. The other trend is sports betting that we kind of talked about. And then the last, do I call it a trend? I guess kind of like a trend. Like these B2B companies there are a select few that are starting to get really innovative with their marketing and like taking a little bit more of a consumer approach to it. Like if you look up Ramp, their stuff, like their corporate credit card, right? Like they hired the guy who used to run Mr. Beast's TikTok to help create some like hype around their B2B stuff, like their newest or their latest like New York stunt, like that was partly from him. And the Abe Lincoln, the funeral of Abe Lincoln when they destroyed the penny or whatever it was, like that was one of his thinkings. So like some of these B2B companies are getting really smart and really interesting. So I would just keep an eye on that because those companies have a lot of money to spend. You just have to get in the
Mm.
right doors.
Mhm. I'm also curious, I know we have a little time left. I wanna ask you about, so I feel like people tie their personality to their sports team. I can't relate to that. I wanna know why people take their team winning or losing so personally, and how does that bond form?
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from like I like to look at it from a struggle standpoint, right? So, for instance, I think a lot of people identify most to things that they were able to struggle with for a while and then reach some sort of success at some point, right? So, for instance, for you, Grace, I would say you identify as a designer. You always have, right? Ever since like college or whatever. That's because you probably struggled to get into the design world, right? Like you were studying, you're taking tests, you're trying to figure out, trying to break into tech in the design world, and then you built your brand in design. Very similar to, I would argue, how a lot of people build goodwill with sports. Their team sucks, but I love this team for some reason because it's where I grew up, or my parents love this team, or it's my favorite color. Like there's a lot of different things that people can be drawn to of like why a team is their favorite. But the team sucks, they start winning. Oh my God, this is amazing. I need to root them on. Even when they're starting to suck, I want to keep rooting them on. The same way that you likely, like everything that we talk about it kind of goes back to you as a designer, right? It's a piece of your identity. And for people, sports is a piece of their identity, whether they're athletic or not, right? It might just be that's the team that they grew up watching, or maybe it's every Sunday they reminisce on this is when I would watch football with my family, right? Because we would always watch this game, and like I love that feeling of family, right? So I think there's a lot of things there, but the main thing that I would say is struggle tends to build community for a lot of people, and don't discount that. I would say when you're looking at how communities are built. But I got to run to another call. This was great all around the Super Bowl. I was glad that I was able to talk sports and everything. But super excited to see who wins the Super Bowl. We'll have a recap on like Super Bowl ads and everything like that next week. But until then, I'm going to say Seahawks because even though I'm from New England, I hate the Patriots. So I'm going to go Seahawks. What about you?
Nice.
Seahawks or Patriots?
Probably Seahawks. It's like closer. It's like Seattle. It's like
Okay.
closer, I guess. I don't know.
See,
I feel
everyone
like
always
people
finds a
also really,
reason. There's always a reason,
yeah,
right?
just because it's closer. I don't know. I feel like I like a good underdog story though, and I feel like that struggle, seeing the teammates evolve over time, spending time with family, so it all makes sense. So yeah, excited for the Super Bowl this time. I think last year I was just like, but now I'm just having a whole like understanding of whole this his culture. But yes, yeah. So you get a nice at the next episode and have a great meeting, Justin.
Yeah. See you guys. Peace.
Bye.